What does Jesus mean when he calls himself the Son of Man?
Oh, this is a great question.
I love how excited you get about this stuff.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
It's great.
Well, look, if you can't get excited about Jesus, what are you going to get excited about?
Exactly.
No, so the Son of Man is one of those. It's another one of those riddles. Okay, it's got like a double meaning. On the one hand, Son of Man can just be used in the Bible to refer to a human being, like in Psalm 8, where it says, what is the Son of Man, Lord, that you're mindful of him? In other words, how do you take account of mere human beings? So on the one hand, Son of Man just means a human being. On the other hand, in the Old Testament book of Daniel, the Son of Man is this mysterious heavenly being who comes on the clouds as if he's a divine figure, because in the Old Testament, God rides on the clouds. And it says he came on the clouds of heaven and was like a Son of Man. So he's a heavenly being who looks like a human and who comes to the Ancient of Days and receives this everlasting kingdom so that all peoples, tribes, and tongues will worship him, will honor him, and he'll be king over this everlasting kingdom. So what happens is Jesus takes that expression, the Son of Man, and he refers to himself in the Gospels over and over again in the third person. And it's kind of weird because on the one hand, it can just mean a human being, but when Jesus puts a definite article in front of it, like the Son of Man, he is clearly alluding to the Son of Man in the book of Daniel, this heavenly figure, who one Jewish scholar, Daniel Boyarin, and he taught at Yale for years, he says the Son of Man in the book of Daniel is divine because he's riding on the clouds of heaven and because people are worshiping him, something done only to God alone. Now, if Jesus picks that guy to refer to himself as, and if you read through the Gospels, Jesus' favorite way of referring to himself is the Son of Man, then also, once again, what is he doing? He's revealing that he's not just fully human, he's also divine. But he's doing it in a Jewish way by alluding to the Jewish scriptures and showing he's the fulfillment of Jewish prophecy.
Right, I think when many people read "I'm the Son of Man," they think he's saying, "Hey, I'm just a dude like you." But how do people respond to him when he says, "I am the Son of Man"?
Well, that's a great question. To look at that, you have to look at the end of Mark's gospel. This is another real problem for scholars like Ehrman. They'll say, "Well, Jesus never claimed to be divine in the earliest gospel of Mark," and my response to that is, "Well, then why is he accused of blasphemy in the context of a question about his identity at the trial before the Sanhedrin?"
Yeah.
Right. So, this is a really, really momentous point. So if you skip ahead to to chapter 14 at the end of the Gospel of Mark, you'll remember Jesus goes before the Jewish Sanhedrin, which was like the high priestly council, and they're trying to bring up a charge against him. Some people say he was going to destroy the temple and whatnot. And finally, the high priest just cuts through all of that and says, "Tell us, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed?" And Jesus says in response, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven." And how does the high priest respond to that, Matt? Do you remember?
Yeah, he's like, "Okay, sweet, you're nuts." No, he rips his garments, yeah.
No, he tears his garments and he says, "We don't need any more witnesses. You have heard his blasphemy. What's your decision?" And they all say he deserves to die.
Wow.
Now, I actually asked Bart Ehrman this once in a public context. I was at a lecture he was given, and I asked him. I said, "You just told everyone here that Jesus never claims to be divine in the Gospel of Mark. Well, if he never claims to be divine, then why does the high priest accuse him of blasphemy in the context of a question about his identity?"
And he said,
well, this is important because it wasn't blasphemy to claim to be the Messiah.
Okay.
Because the Messiah is just the king of Israel. He's the long-awaited king. David is called Messiah in the Old Testament. Messiah just means anointed king.
Okay.
It isn't blasphemy to claim to be the king if you are the king. Right?
What would it be? What would it be if you weren't the Messiah and you said you were?
Well, then it'd be false witness. You'd be just saying you'd be lying about yourself. Okay.
But it's not blasphemy. Okay.
No, it's not blasphemy. Yeah, if the high priest said, "We've all heard him bear false witness," that would be different. But that's not what the high priest said. We've heard his blasphemy.
What did Ehrman say, though, when you pointed that out?
Well, he kind of backed it up and he talked around it for just about 2 minutes. And at the end, he said, "Well, does Mark does Jesus claim to be divine in Mark? Yeah, kind of. I guess he does. He actually admits it at the end because he recognized. But what he says is that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So he pulls the legend argument.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
So,
As you say, it's the linchpin.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter anyway.
All right. Yeah, he does claim to be divine in the trial, but we know that the trial didn't happen, so we don't. That doesn't constitute evidence that Jesus claimed to be God.
I don't know how you feel about public debates, but have you reached out to Ehrman?
No, I haven't reached out. I've just been really, Well, okay. Full disclosure, I'm just so busy. I'm not interested in doing debates. I really have like 3 or 4 books I'm trying to write.
Right.
And I'm to do debates after I get the books written. But
he's quite good on his feet, though, Ehrman.
Oh, he's very
good speaker.
You can there's actually a YouTube video of my question to him.
Oh.
Somebody took a clip of it and said Bart Ehrman stumbles into the divinity of Jesus in Mark.
I'm going to put that up in the show notes for our listeners.
Well, to his credit, he was honest about it. Like he admitted, yes, that the best explanation of that answer is that Jesus is claiming to be divine. But the problem is, he says, well, we have no way of knowing what happened in the trial because we don't have any witnesses from that trial. And to that, I would say false. That's not true. For one thing, Joseph Arimathea was a member of the Sanhedrin and a believer in Jesus. Right?
Yeah.
And second, Peter's in the courtyard. You don't think people are talking about what they say? I mean, come on. It's just not. It's not reasonable to believe that we have no access to it. Also, it falsifies the argument.
Okay.
What his main argument is Jesus doesn't claim to be divine in the Synoptics, and Mark's testimony in the trial shows that that's just false.